I'll read out the list of people that I've found or that it said that you work with. So Savage, Orndorff, Butch Reed, Jake Roberts, also Harley Race.
Yes. Yeah,
And
that was, I think, on later taping.
yeah, and a later taping, and Bob Orton and my podcast cohort, Don Morocco.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you work on a podcast with Don?
Every week. Every
Please tell
week.
Don I said hello. I haven't seen him forever, and well, since ECW when he left ECW. Please tell him I said hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, Don's still the man as well. He's like the most easygoing guy in the entire
Yeah.
world. He's great.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you what, people always throw names around like the greats, right? You get your Harleys and your Brunos and that kind of thing. I remember as a kid going back to the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, and Don was working with Bob Backlund, who was then champion. They did a 1 hour Broadway. The next month, they came back and did a 2 hour match. And during that match, ask me if he remembers this. During the match, all the lights come up, and there's people running up on the stands opposite of where we were, and an ambulance pulls in. Somebody died up in the stands that night, and I remember Don had Bob in an arm lock, and they stayed there and waited, and it was probably 30 minutes or so. They come and get out of the building, and that's when Backlund would then pick him up. And Don was no small guy. He's a pretty big boy. And Bob picked him up, got him up off the mat and up off his shoulder. That's a lot of dead weight to be picking up like that because, Don can't help him really. And I remember watching that match and just being mesmerized, 2 hour match. Like as a wrestler now, I'm thinking I've done 1 hour matches and they're hard, but I can't even begin to imagine a 2 hour match.
Yeah.
Amazing.
With Don Morocco, do you know, he remembers nothing from ECW, but maybe you could sort of fill in some of the gaps. What do you remember of working with him in ECW because he was one of the original champions that I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah. Yeah, the previous owner of Eastern Championship Wrestling had brought in a lot of those guys like Salvatore Belomo, Don,
Tito Santana.
Santana. I mean, a lot of those guys. And, I think Paul, all those guys were all big names. Paul's vision was to take it in a vastly different direction, right? And those guys all come with their own reputations and histories. Most of us, I think, the only one in the dressing, me and Terry, of course, that had any kind of background in the business. And my background was as a babyface. And so sort of tabula rasa for Shane Douglas in ECW. For me, walking in that first couple shows, those first couple months when those guys were all there, like Muraco and Hawk and Salvatore and those guys, it made it comfortable because it was like a kid getting in the business again, right? Same type of dressing room walking in, and really looked up to all these guys. These guys had all been there, been to the dance, done it in a big way and successfully. So like when I started seeing them go, my initial thought was like, "Ooh, this is a bad idea." These are big names in the business, and in hindsight now looking back, and you can see like Paul clearing those guys out and then bringing in an Eddie Guerrero or a Dean Malenko or a Chris Benoit or Super Crazy or nobody, no big names then. But for the last, 20, 25 years, names that have dominated the industry. So, learned a big lesson from Paul.